again, welcome to Enfield Today. I'm your host, John Fox, subbing for Kevin Kibbe, who's a little under the weather. So it's good to be back, and thank you for tuning in tonight. Tonight we've got a double episode. We're going to have two different groups on, both very, very important for the town of Enfield. The first group is the Enfield Safe Harbor Warming Center at the Holy Trinity Episcopal Church. And the second group is the Enfield Together Coalition. It's a group of people who are advocating against underage drinking, and they'll be on the second half of the show. So for the first half, the Warming Center is very important. It's an initiative that's been around for 15 years. Many times this has been attempted, and so far it's been successful since last year, with over 450 homeless people who have used this center to get out of the cold, because we know when we're in our homes it's so nice for us to put on extra layers or to be in our house, and we have that luxury. And unfortunately in our times there are people who have no option for that, and they are cold, and this is a godsend, really. Tremendous collaboration between just about every church in town, and is headed up by the Reverend Peter Bushnell. So with me tonight I have Carol Sensky, who is the fundraising chair, and also David Goyette, who is the vice president or vice chair.
Vice, yeah.
And so let's get right into it, guys. Tell me a little bit about the beginnings of this, and how did you finally get over the hump to make it a possibility for our Enfield homeless?
2 years ago, under the direction of leadership of Pam Brown, who was then our social services director, we formed a group that had an interest and a passion, actually, for helping the homeless in Enfield. And we were able to bring that to fruition last year. And it's continued this year. There's about 14 of us on the steering committee. And last year, as John said, we housed overnight for over 450 folks in the 54 nights that we were open. And we're looking for the same success this year.
Oh, that's tremendous. I do know that attempts were made in the past for people to go to the lobby of the police station, which is still an option, but as we know, that's not the most probably comfortable environment to get out of the cold. I wouldn't even want to be there, and those guys are great and everything, but so it's nice that they have this environment for them. And you know, getting right to the money. I mean, this costs money to operate, and you have a staff that are there from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. and you know, just to keep it safe. And you have insurance, and to have the staff there probably keeps the insurance rates down. But these are all costs that come up, and your goal is to stay open right through the winter to March. So Carol's job is to help increase funds. So we're going to talk about an event that you have that's a fundraiser. But let's go right to this graphic here. We get an idea exactly what kind of money they're looking to raise. And while we're doing this, because we're shorthanded on our cameras tonight, we'll talk a little bit more about you know, other resources that homeless people have in town. They can always go. Oh, there we go. Okay, you got that? You want camera one? Okay, so our neighborhood services have different avenues for the homeless, emergency homeless situations, hotel rooms for families, let's say they're displaced by a fire. Okay, and you've got that? You got that? Can we go to this? Go to this one more time, because I want to show the numbers here on this page. Camera one. So Kevin's much better at this, you know, I'll admit. So over here, I actually highlighted in, okay, I got it this way. So they're at halfway to their goal. They're at 7,500, and that's not going to get them to March. They need to be at 20,000 to reach March, and there we go. And so they count on contributions from the community, you know, or businesses, or anybody that is this a nonprofit, right?
Yes, it is.
So it's tax deductible. Thank you. And the event that you have coming up, Carol, you want to talk a little bit about the auction and
Yes.
what day that is?
On January 26th, the Golden Gavel is going to sponsor our auction. Pat Soucy is very civic-minded, and he has agreed to let us provide the auction items that we can collect from different churches and people and businesses around town. And we will be auctioning them off between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. And 100% of the proceeds will go back to the warming center to try to fill in the gap in the other $10,000 that we need to see this through till March. We had it last year. It was very successful. So far this year, we've had a fundraiser, Sylvia's International Gourmet Restaurant and Joe's Fine Wines both sponsored us for a wine tasting and dinner, and that was very successful. We've also wrapped presents at the Enfield Mall to earn some money for the warming center. And we sold hot chocolate at the tree, carols sing and the tree lighting on the green.
Chocolate and cookies, yeah.
And cookies. So we've done several things, and we have this is our big one coming up. And we're also working with the Two Moms on a Mission to have a quarter auction in the future. So hopefully we'll meet our goal of $20,000 and be able to stay open through the winter for the homeless people in Enfield.
So I'm holding this up because it's got a picture, first of all, of the church. You know,
Holy Trinity.
Holy Trinity. And, you know, you drive by it every day, and you might not even realize that's Holy Trinity or whatever. But so that's Holy Trinity. And on this flyer, and I'll just read it, it says, checks can be made to Enfield People for People with memo line Warming Center. So you would mail this to the Enfield People for People. They have a P.O. Box 165, and the zip code is 06083. And, you know, it's tremendous when you have these events like the auction, because 100% of the proceeds, if you heard her, that's amazing, because the auction's really popular, and there is actually a lot going on there. So that first hour, if you're going to go out and kind of buy some stuff anyway, or you know you're into that kind of thing, what a great opportunity to raise some money for this organization. And Two Moms on a Mission, love to have them on the show sometime. I've been to the auctions. It's a great time. It's always a great time. If you ever hear about it, you should try to go. They have food, and then there's vendors, and you get paddles. And Shannon, our producer, has been there with me. I got pictures on my Facebook page where you get a paddle, and I guess if your number comes up or whatever, you go and you pick out a prize or something. I think that, or you get quarters, or I don't know how that, I can't remember. It's been a while, but so I want to just say something about People for People. This is an organization behind the impetus for this, that they've been around a long time. They've advocated for homeless for a long time. I did work with the Red Cross in Middlesex County in Middletown, and they had a transitional housing program. This is something that I would love to see happen in Enfield, and I know that our planning and zoning make it very difficult to even talk about this. Nobody wants it in their backyard, but People for People had looked into some of that in the past. And you know what? Small steps. I'm really glad that we're starting with a warming center, you know, because we're not a civilization. We're not civilized people if we're not taking care of the most vulnerable. And to think that somebody could actually die in our woods because we know they're living out behind some of the plazas. I mean, this is awful. So.
You see the folks all around Enfield. All you need to do is drive around and you see them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's real and it's there. Yep.
Yeah, it's just, you can't ignore that anymore. And I think as we move forward, it's just probably going to get harder and harder. As jobs are still very difficult to find for some people. And, you know, we had the whole issue with signs and everything last year. But I like to think that someday Enfield will be like a Middletown and sort of be proactive about finding those people, counting them, making sure, because I know when I've talked to Priscilla Brayson at the Loaves and Fishes, she said, oh, we've got hundreds. You know, people think it's maybe 3 or 4, but we've got hundreds of homeless in this town. And I'd like to be proactive and see us go out, find them, bring them to the warming center, and then eventually set up a transitional housing program so if there's mental issues or drug issues or addiction issues, You deal with those, you help them find jobs, and it's a hand-up program is what they would say.
One of the nice spin-offs last year from the Warming Center, we had different agencies come in, John. CHR came in, Department of Social Services, and they actually met with folks to talk about housing and those things, and actually got a couple people into homes.
Yeah, that's to me, that's the saddest thing. We're down to less than 2 minutes, I guess, on this segment, but I have to say, the idea that families are living in hotels or living in cars, that's the first thing that we need to address too. I mean, these kids are going to school hungry, you know, it's just, we've really got to be honest with ourselves. You know, when we see budget cuts and we say, what's hurting somebody else is not hurting us. Well, it's hurting all of us when we look the other way. So, all right, so is there anything else you guys want to hit on real quick before, you need volunteers. So I would say go to can we put up the Facebook page for the graphic? You need volunteers. You had a meeting a couple weeks ago.
We had a meeting January 3rd of all the volunteers. We had about 40 volunteers come last year. We had about 65 to 70 volunteers. So there still is a need for more volunteers to help staff the center overnight. There's always a paid site coordinator on staff that has CHR and Department of Social Services has specialized training for those folks.
Terrific.
And then we have a program coordinator to oversee the entire program.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So yeah.
Yeah, and so I would say people should go to the Safe Harbor Center Facebook page. I follow it. I see your announcements.
Yep.
And it's going to open up this coming Monday. And for the first night of the year, we've already had 3-degree weather outside. I don't know how anybody's outside in these temperatures, you know. So I'm glad you're opening. And if you go to any of the Enfield forum, you'll see information there occasionally. You know, we'll try to get the word out on all the pages and let people know if you have someone. Okay, so we have 30 seconds.
Can I just say one thing?
Absolutely.
Okay, we also take donations of food things, coffee, creamers, protein bars, and warm clothing for the clients that come in and spend the night with us, and of course any cash donations or gift baskets or whatever for the auction would also be helpful.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Carol and David. I appreciate you coming down. And, you know, hopefully we'll have your fundraising goals met. Thank you very much for coming down.
Thanks for your support, John.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
We're leaving.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Oh, hey, bud. Where are you headed?
Just gonna hang out.
With Gary and Todd?
Yeah?
I've been meaning to ask you, is there any drinking going on in this crowd?
No?
If any of your buddies ever pressure you to take a drink, just tell them you promised your dad you wouldn't. I'd do anything to keep you safe.
Okay, I will.
I hope this is working.
I promise. Love you too, Dad.
They really do hear you. For tips on what to say, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Thanks for joining us for the second half of our episode tonight of the Enfield Today. With me, I have a couple people from the Enfield Together Coalition. We've had them on the show earlier this year, I think, possibly. I know I've seen you guys on a few different shows, Dave Kiner's show, and at the town council, I think you did a nice presentation there over the summer. So to my left, I have Bev Harrison, and I have Joan Lawson. Joan is the co-chair and also a member of the Enfield Together Coalition. So they're here with a special message because we're going into the Super Bowl Sunday football playoffs time. And let's first of all, what's your mission? What's the big mission for the Enfield Coalition?
So just a little bit about who we are. We have been in existence since 2004, and our target audience is parents. And the Enfield Together Coalition is made up of different sectors. So we have 12 sectors that make up our coalition. And just for an example, we would have youth, parents, business people, media, school, state and local government, and I represent the faith community, and Bev represents our business community. So we do have the different sectors, and we have a mission. And let me just tell you a little bit about what we do. We are dedicated to reducing and preventing underage drinking and substance use in Enfield through raising awareness, education of parents and youth, and enforcing underage drinking laws. So that's a little bit of our goals and mission to get the messaging out there, and we do positive messaging, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we kind of go along. But it's an exciting coalition to be a part of because we work in the community and we really want to see a healthy community. So I find it a real joy to be working a little over 10 years with this coalition.
Tremendous. And what does the business community do as part of the mission exactly? How are they involved?
Well, we partner with the Enfield Together Coalition, and we provide opportunity for them to get the word out, to get our positive messaging. So, for example, with the Super Bowl coming up, we use this opportunity to bring awareness to our community through different venues. So we're using the Enfield Public Library. We have a display there, and also the Enfield Square Mall. And what our messaging is basically is don't provide alcohol to teens, especially during this party atmosphere. We want to make parents and anyone aware of the Connecticut's underage drinking laws. And just an example, a minor may have their license suspended for up to 60 days for possessing alcohol. Individuals who knowingly permit minors to possess or consume alcohol can be fined or imprisoned, or both. So these are out and about in the community. People can go to the library, can go to the Enfield Square Mall and pick up information. And also look at the Magic Carpet Bus. That messaging is on the back of the buses. Love them enough to say no. And it's also on billboards.
You know, this is a very important message these days because so many people have issues with alcohol later on in life, and it all stems from what we deem to be the socialization of drinking. You know, that it's no longer just you know, something you would do just for the taste of the alcohol or the booze or whatever. I mean, it's about your whole status among your friends and feeling accepted, and you know, it's so much better to build your self-esteem through natural methods or feeling good about your own achievements. And unfortunately, we're socialized at a young age through television and movies and everything else, you know, that we need to be drinking or to feel like in an altered state or something, just to enjoy what comes through living in the moment, I guess you could say. And you know, I'll just mention this. In college, I was a resident assistant at the University of Connecticut, and I didn't realize how, maybe when I was young and I saw my friends drinking, I didn't think twice about it. You know, yeah, let's go get a keg or, you know, six-pack, sit out in the woods, sit behind the roller skating rink or whatever. And then later on, you know, like 20 years later, I look at all the stuff that I missed out on that the other kids maybe who weren't, you know, just partying or whatever were doing. And I'm like, geez, I wish I had been at McDonald's, I guess, instead of behind the roller skating rink. And just a little personal note there, right? You can, right, to raise your hand. You know, it's just the fact of life in most towns. But when I went to the University of Connecticut and I was a resident assistant, and I was probably 21 or so, I saw kids coming in, freshman age, 18, you know, or around that age, and the first weekend they were able to go out and score the booze and everything else, and they drank way too much. And we had to take special training to learn about alcohol intoxication. You know, poisoning through drinking too much alcohol.
Absolutely.
I don't think that's the real risk. I don't think young people know that there's a real danger to overconsumption of alcohol. So that was an eye-opener. I had to throw out a lot of beer and everything else in those days, and that was a long time ago. So coming up to the Super Bowl, let's talk about that. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, just don't seem to be able to watch the game without having a few drinks. And you have alternatives, non-alcoholic alternatives, which are very tasty. You want to talk a little bit about that? I'm sorry this isn't in color, by the way. I have the color version at home, but I printed out black and white. And you can't read this anyway, but go ahead and talk about.
You can get that on our website.
Okay.
Yes, on the Enfield Together website, you'll see that in color. But maybe Bev would like to share a little bit about that messaging.
So we don't just say, we want positive messaging. So we're not just saying, you know, just say no. We're giving children giving teens options. So we, on our flyer here, we have a delicious non-alcoholic drink recipe. And we used to have a slogan, kids who think don't drink. So this is what we're hoping for, that we can start a conversation and have clear boundaries about underage drinking. And remember, it's the parents who still have the greatest influence on their children. So
yeah, and that's important too. I mean, parents, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know why any parent would go out and buy their kid alcohol and, you know, here's you know, Jimmy's first beer, you know, or whatever. Wait till Jimmy's 21. He'll have his whole life to drink, or she'll have her whole life to drink. Let me just read the recipe real quick, though. It's a half gallon of orange sherbet with a 6-ounce can of orange juice concentrate and a 2-liter bottle of ginger ale. Doesn't that sound like an Orange Julius? And we all remember how great those were.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? There's a whole bunch of recipes for drinks like this. And they're good. We had a fundraiser for Effie at the Hazardville barn, and I think we had like 6 or 7 different ones that were all really good.
Yeah.
No alcohol, you know, it was a good time. So what about the drugs, prescription drug?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, John, because one of our partners is enforcement, and one of the opportunities we had a couple years ago was to put a medication drop box into the Enfield police station, and that is open 24/7, as it says on our flyer. So our campaign of Take It to the Box is a real positive message that parents and teens would learn not to use those drugs or give them away to anyone that could harm, but take them to the police station and dispose of them in a real positive and healthy way. And with this partnership with the enforcement, every month, you know, they weigh and count how much medication they bring in, and it's about 400 pounds a month that's being incinerated. So that's a tremendous amount of medication. So we really feel like that messaging is getting across. That poster can sometimes be found in your pharmacies, and you would, you know, be able to tell your friends. So we hope you're seeing that messaging out there, and that you will take your unused medications to that drop box 24/7. No questions asked, just deposit it.
Absolutely. You know what, I always think what you could do is empty all the medications into a Ziploc bag and just bring them down to the police department. The other environmental reason for doing that is every chemical you can think of is, and most of our drugs are made with multiple chemicals.
Yes.
They end up in the water supply, and you find babies being born with trace amounts of these chemicals from the pharmaceutical drugs and everything else. Such a great idea on so many levels to bring that down there. We are down to 1 minute, so I'm just going to say to reach out to your group, to join your group, go to the Facebook page, the Enfield Together Coalition.
www.enfieldtogether.org. They can go to the website or follow us on Facebook. And our meetings are monthly, and they can come to Molina's Cafe, which is on 95 High Street. Our next meeting is on February the 14th, and we meet from 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. and we have coffee and a bagel, and this is the place where we have conversation and talk about our upcoming events that we have going on and just some of the concerns that parents have. So we really are encouraging parents to come and be a part of this because we know they make a difference.
Well, that's tremendous. Thank you, Joan and Bev, for coming down and being on our show, and thanks to all of our volunteers who are helping out producing the show. Kevin will be back next time, and as always, we're just here to produce and provide you guys with all the information about what's going on in Enfield. So thank you for watching the show, and certainly come down to our website for the Enfield Today Facebook page, and thank you for, oh, okay, so now I guess I'm ending too soon. Stretch, I'm getting the stretch. Anyway, so
Thank
enjoy.
you for having us.
Yeah,
Yes,
and